Welcome to the Food for Thought podcast. I'm your host, Erin Hallstrom. On today's episode, we're talking with Bill Besenhofer, CEO and co-founder of the Fresh Factory. This vertically integrated company partners with food and beverage brands, big and small, to help them scale up production of fresh and clean food products. With a mission to accelerate the growth of plant-based foods, the Fresh Factory owns and partners with emerging brands in the plant-based space to develop, manufacture, and sell products made from fresh produce. In this episode, we talk not only about what the Fresh Factory is doing, but also the trends it's seeing in the plant-based category. We also talk about how the Fresh Factory uses high-pressure processing on its manufacturing lines. We wrap things up talking about the company's most recent endeavor, its Fresh Start Accelerator program. But before we get into the episode, a word from our friends at the 2022 Digital Food and Beverage Conference. The rise in e-commerce demand and changing consumer behavior have forced food and beverage brands, retailers, grocers, and quick-serve restaurants to adjust their processes to better relate and build lasting relationships with their new digital customers. Be sure to register for the 2022 Digital Food and Beverage event taking place July 25th and 26th in Austin, Texas. Meet with fellow digital marketing and e-commerce professionals from the industry's most innovative companies. And because you are a Food Processing Food for Thought podcast listener, we have a special promo code for you, DFB22FOOD at foodandbeverage.wbresearch.com for 25% off your pass. Enjoy the episode. Bill, welcome to the Food for Thought podcast. I am so excited to have you on today. Let's first get started by talking about what the Fresh Factory is.
Well, thanks, Ann, so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you today. Really, the Fresh Factory, it's a mission-driven platform. And really what we're trying to do is we're really trying to build the infrastructure for the future of the food and beverage industry. And with that being said, really what we focus on is clean label, fresh ingredients, and plant-based products. And so really to that end, what we've built here is an integrated platform from farm to shelf. And, with our overall goal, really trying to provide honest food for everyone.
That's really exciting, especially now. So I'm curious, as are our listeners, I'm sure, what kinds of food and beverage companies do you work with?
Man, we work with a multitude of companies. I think the platform that we've built, which starts basically from, like I mentioned, from the farm all the way to the shelf, is within our innovation process with our food scientists. So we work with companies that could be a lot of emerging brands. Just last year alone, 20,000 new emerging brands have come out, and they need a place to go, and they need a place to have somebody that allows them to get to market much quicker than what they would have in the past and the legacy infrastructure that's in place within the food industry. And so we work with a lot of emerging brands, but from there, we also work with a lot of large companies, publicly traded companies, who unfortunately it takes them a lot of time to get products into market, especially in this new era of where everything is clean labeled or plant-based or fresh ingredients, which is really where the market's going.
I know you mentioned your mission is focused on plant-based products. Talk to me more about why you're focused on plant-based. And a follow-up to that, is that the only product category you help with?
Yeah, for us, it really starts with just eating cleanly, quite frankly. And within that is fresh ingredients and plant-based. 6-7 years ago, when we kind of went on this journey here to start this company, we really believed that the clean label and the plant-based was where the market was going, and quite honestly, it was better for you. And so we work with multitudes of categories within that space because we really feel like that's what the consumer is looking for nowadays, and that's the Millennials, et cetera. We're all looking at the backs of our labels to understand what's inside the products that we're eating. We want to know where our food's coming from. And so we really kind of like basically just dug into that and really focused in on some of those, new emerging brands as they've kind of come into the marketplace as plant-based has continued to grow. And unfortunately, right now, so to speak, the sentiment's a little bit down on the industry in the sense from the plant-based perspective, but the reality is it's not really going to go anywhere, and that's, you can see that attributed to, McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken, who really have put like these alternatives out there at like mass scale, and it just continues to keep growing, year over year.
It's interesting what you bring up about the generations. I didn't even think about it that way, or in that realm of how generations would be kind of driving this, which I can't believe that I'm not figuring that out, because it seems like that's all we've written about or talked about is, your millennial versus boomer aspects to why we produce the foods we do. So that's, the generational aspect, definitely a big one. Might circle back to that one.
Yeah, just to hop in on that, it's interesting because it's not even from the millennial perspective that you start to go further down the chain and you start to look at the kids that are in college. When they start spending more money on, healthier, better for you products than they do some of the other things that are out there, you realize like that's how they're growing up, and that really isn't necessarily going to change. You know what I mean? And so, I think that's the demand of the marketplace, and I think the trend where it's going, and we want to be able to help provide and grow that space.
Yeah, I know something that I've noticed more recently, and it's hard to separate like me as a consumer and how I view things versus the greater consumer group. But the younger generation's definitely focused on the transparency of where their ingredients are coming from, or, is the company doing things for good, or where did the grain come from that's going into my food product or my beverage product. That transparency, I'd be curious to see how different food companies kind of take on that. How much transparency are we willing to be transparent with? It's kind of a meta way of looking at it, but
no, for sure, and that's exactly what and who we are. Which, when I say like honest food for all, we have nothing to hide. The products we make, there's nothing to hide. We want you to know what you're putting in your body, and that just kind of gets to like traceability, right? I mean, we look at traceability in the food industry. It's got to continue to grow. There's obviously been outbreaks and things like that from a salmonella perspective, and really we have to understand where our food comes from, because at the end of the day, it is the consumer who wants to know that, but we should want to know that, right? I mean, we don't need to be behind closed doors, behind a screen, throwing in all these preservatives and things like that without the end consumer knowing that. And so for us, from our perspective, if you've got clean labeled food, plant-based food, really there's nothing to hide, because what you see is what you're getting.
From your point of view, how is the plant-based category looking? Do you see more or fewer products coming online in 2022?
Yeah, I think that, a quick little stat here, in 2020, 57% of all U.S. households purchased plant-based foods. That's over 71 million households, and that's up from 53% in 2019. I don't see it changing. I don't see it plateauing. I actually still see it continuing to grow. And kind of like I mentioned a little bit before, when you start to find large companies, McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Disney World, Disney in general, when they start to offer these alternatives as a food source for consumers, that's not going to stop. It might slow down a little bit as we start to see it. We start to hear again through the market, so to speak. But the amount of plant-based foods that we see on a daily basis is pretty astronomical, and it's just not ending. And I think what maybe started out 8 to 10 years ago as a buzzword is really becoming something that is commonplace, where that's the expectation. and that's what the market's looking for. And so, from our perspective, I think that over this year in general, it could be, it's going to continue to grow percentages-wise, but specifically even for ourselves, we've got actually a flagship brand that we have ownership in called Field and Farmer. And, I can tell you right now, we've got some ranch and queso dip that's plant-based that is already taking off. And I can tell you that, again, when you start to see these large companies dedicating lines, dedicating resources to actually putting out product for the consumer, it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon or slowing down.
You work with high-pressure processing. Are you seeing more products come online using HPP?
I think that, it's interesting because, HPP has been around for quite some time, right? It's a technology that's been in the food industry for quite some time, specifically the meat industry. And, for us, because we work with high-pressure processing, the answer to that would be yes, because we see it continuing to grow. And we see it from the perspective of a lot of emerging brands. Again, because a lot of the emerging brands that are coming into the space, they're looking for that healthy, fresh product. And so, when, you get to HPP, the reality is that with HPP, there's so many positives that you can get from it that in the fresh space, where, again, it's healthier, cleaner for you, it gives you, extended shelf life, which, again, makes that food fresher. It's, not heated, right? And that technology for HPP, it's not heated. It's water pressure at 87, 85, 86,000 PSI. And when you do that using HPP, you're retaining the majority of your nutrients as opposed to when you heat something where you lose the majority of the nutrients that are in there. And then the taste profile is just different, right? If you're doing something that's cooked, you're getting a cooked taste. With HPP, that's less of it. It's more of a fresher taste. That's why the fresher ingredients. You're getting that clean, fresh taste to it. And really, with HPP, it extends the shelf life of the fresh product. And as we just talked about, if the industry is continuing to move towards this fresh and clean products, there's got to be a technology that's able to sustain and be able to make that. That's HPP. So, we utilize that quite often because, again, the majority of our customers do come to us with that, fresh ingredient product.
From your perspective, why the appeal for HPP?
Yeah. So, really the appeal for HPP is it's a fresher tasting product for you. And, again, I'll give an example. You could use the juice industry, for example, where you could pasteurize your orange juice. And then when you pasteurize your orange juice, you're probably losing roughly about 80% of the nutrients that are in there. As opposed to if you were to HPP that product, you actually retain 80% of it. Now, you extend shelf life with an HPP for probably anywhere from 60 to 120 days, but you'll maintain that fresh taste of it. If you go and pasteurize something like that from the juice perspective, you actually will lose, 80% of the nutrients. Now, it can stay on shelf for a year or longer, but it's just not going to have that same fresh taste. And so, the appeal to it is, again, you're getting a fresher product that tastes fresher as opposed to a cooked product.
Let's deviate from HPP to talking about capabilities. Walk me through what the capabilities are at your facility.
So again, we do a multitude of things. We've really built a platform that allows us to be extremely flexible, and that flexibility allows us to do a multitude of different product categories as well as different packaging. So we could do things and fill things in a bottle or a jar. We can fill them in cups or tubs, as well as we can do large food service pouches. And that's just what we can fill it in. But there's ways of being able to, again, pasteurize or make it food safe. One of those ways is HPP. But other ways is we can just go through the cold process filling as well as hot fill and then acidification. And so we do a good chunk of hot filling, clean, fresh product. And so a better for you product. And that kind of ranges all the way from the types of food, which is we do baby food, we do hummuses, we do dips, vegan yogurts, vegan mayo, salad dressing, cold pressed juices, teas, smoothies, coffees. So we really do a lot of different things in our facility, which I will say our facility is an SQF, formerly level 3 facility, which is the highest form of food safety that you can have within the food industry.
I noticed on your website you also talk about working with capital partners, incubators, and accelerators. Can you talk to me more about how you work with them?
Yeah, sure. So we, which very shortly here will be announced publicly, that we ourselves are going to be starting an incubator accelerator called Fresh Start. And with Fresh Start, it's really we'll be picking 2 to 3 companies that we will work with that will go through a 12-week program, basically from start to finish, so to speak, that they'll have a product in place. And we will work with them all the way through, their own product themselves of commercialization, all the way through the supply chain to manufacturing to finished fulfillment, to helping them with potential sales and marketing and understanding that. And really, we work with some of these financial capital partners to help these new emerging brands get off the ground and really get moving. Because as they start to come to market, it obviously can be, needless to say, overwhelming. But with our expertise in-house, we're really able to kind of take them underneath our wing and then help them to grow and to get to market, quickly and hopefully help them get on shelf and be successful.
Have you noticed any trends with who's coming to you from those incubators and accelerators or outside of the Fresh Factory incubator that you're going to be launching?
Yeah, it's what we're tending to see are some of the things that are coming our way are new to the industry. These are really the products that are at the forefront, that are really changing the game. I'm trying to think without being able to say exactly what they are, but they are definitely game changers that are coming to the industry. But in a whole, it really is, clean label and better for you products. And quite frankly, in some cases, there's some things that have been out there for many, many years, products that have been out there for many years that are now becoming cleaner because of our expertise and technology that's out there, which allows us to take some of these products, again, that aren't as healthy for you or as well for you, that we're able to clean up and make them better for you.
All right, last question for you. If our listeners wanted to learn more about the Fresh Factory, how should they go about doing so?
If there's anybody that's out there that's interested in getting in contact with us, I'd ask that they please reach out to our email address. That is info, I-N-F-O, at thefreshfactory.co, and we will have someone back in touch within 24 hours.
Well, all right. Well, Bill, thank you so much for being on this episode of the Food for Thought podcast.
For everyone listening to the Food for Thought podcast today, thank you for tuning in. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and just about everywhere you can listen to a podcast. Be sure to tune in next time as we talk more about the stories behind the headlines of the food and beverage industry. Take care. Have a great day.